Edgar Allan Poe's tale of 1844, The Oblong Box, tells a journey through the sea in which Cornelius Wyatt, his wife, and his two sisters reserve 3 rooms aboard a ship. Wyatt, his wife, together with an oblong box that gives off a bad smell, occupies one of the rooms. His sisters occupy another. The third room, according to the narrator, is occupied by his servant, or is used to store the excess luggage of the travelers. Although it was rumored that Wyatt's wife was a beautiful woman, the narrator observes that in reality it is quite simple when she leaves her husband alone in her room to spend the night in the third room. After the ship is lost during a hurricane, Wyatt refuses to join the crew and the other passengers in the ship's lifeboat, tying themselves to the box, and ends up drowning in the sea. During a meeting, a month later, the captain of the ship, Captain Hardy, explains the mystery of the box. It was a coffin. Wyatt, accompanied by his sisters, travels from Charleston, South Carolina, to the city of New York to return the body of his beautiful and deceased wife to her mother. In order not to bother the guests, the captain arranged for the box to be registered as luggage, and Wyatt's maid was made to pass by his wife. Poe was inspired by a 3-year-old journalistic story about the assassination of Samuel Adams by John C. Colt, Samuel's brother, who manufactured the famous Colt revolver, which was equally popular among the gunmen of the far west of the 19th century and the soldiers of the United States Army. The murder occurred in 1841 as a result of an unpaid bill. After killing Adams, the murderer packed the body of his victim in a salt box and sent it to New Orleans, Louisiana. After Adams' friends notified the authorities that he had disappeared, the box was found aboard the ship. The crew members said that the decomposition of the body had been confused with rat repellent. The story of Charles Dickens of 1866, The Signaller, is an exciting horror story based on the accident of the Clayton Tunnel. A signaller parked in a remote place near a tunnel tells the narrator to listen to bells that warn him of an imminent danger, just before a ghost that foretells a terrible shock appears. On one of those occasions, the narrator is present. By not listening to the warning bells that the signaller hears, the narrator believes that the man is hallucinating. Finally, the signaller himself is run over and killed by a train approaching, after not paying attention to the repeated warnings of the driver to stay away from the track. The reports on the accident of the Clayton Tunnel, which occurred on August 25, 1861 at 5 miles from Brighton, inspired the story of Dickens as his own experience 4 years later, on June 9, when he was a survivor of a train accident. He traveled with his lover, Ellen Ternan, and Ternan's mother, when the train derailed in a town of Kent, England. The wagons at the back of the train separated from those at the front, several of which fell off a viaduct, breaking and crashing when the train crossed the easel. The locomotive leans precariously on the side of the easel, supported by thick wood, while officials and spectators watch the workers remove the rubble. Having survived the accident, Dickens provided assistance to the injured, some of whom died in his presence. 10 people did not survive the accident and another 49 were injured. Then the author returned to the rubble to recover the manuscript of his novel, Our Common Friend. The accident seems to be due to several reasons. The train descended at 50 miles per hour, the rails of the viaduct were removed during the repair work. The captain in charge of the work had made a mistake in the schedule and did not expect Dickens's train until within 2 hours, and the position of the flag that had been placed with a red flag to warn the driver of the need to stop was against the rules. Too close to the viaduct to allow the train to stop in time. The accident left an indelible mark on the author. Dickens wrote, "I feel sudden and vague waves of terror, even when I travel in a point car that are perfectly unreasonable, but for me quite unbeatable." The Yellow Wallpaper is an intense history of terror of 1892 and is considered one of the first feminist declarations of independence and autonomy. The protagonist, a woman confined to a bed in an empty room, whose walls are covered with a yellow painted paper, gradually loses contact with reality. Her husband, a doctor, and her brother-in-law, also a doctor, agree that bed rest is the best treatment for her temporary nervous depression and the hysterical tension that accompanied her. She does not seem to be so sure, but follows the recommended treatment of phosphates, tonics, and giving up all kinds of work. Alone in the room with nothing to do, she studies the yellow wallpaper and finds it opaque. It is confusing and is full of uncertain curves and contradictory scandalous angles. The color is repulsive and horrible. Finally, she discovers a weak figure behind the wallpaper, a woman who can provide her with the means to escape her confinement and the suffocating care of her husband. In an article from 1913 in The Forerunner, Perkins explained why he wrote the Yellow Wallpaper, describing her postpartum depression as a serious and continuous nervous crisis that tends to melancholy and beyond. In 1887, 3 years after her depression, a prominent specialist in nervous diseases advised her to have only 2 hours of intellectual life a day and never touch a pen, brush, or pencil again. For 3 months she followed the orders of the doctor, who almost has a hard time before getting out of bed and resuming work. A self-prescribed therapy that she believed saved her. Grateful for her escape through the hairs of madness, she wrote the Yellow Wallpaper, hoping to save other women from a similar fate, that of madness, which had almost claimed her. The story of Nathaniel Hawthorne, from 1843, The Birthmark, is about a scientist, Almir, who finds his wife Georgina exquisitely beautiful. Except in one detail, he believes that his cheek is damaged by the presence of a birthmark in the form of a miniature hand. He persuades her to drink a potion that he prepares, which causes the birthmark to disappear completely, but in the process he also kills her. The last 2 sentences provide the theme of the story. Blinded by a senseless imperfection and an impossible goal, Almir had wasted his life and with it his chance to be happy. In trying to improve his charming wife, he had not realized that she had been perfect from the beginning. According to Patricia Dunleavy Pallanty, author of the biography of Sophia Peabody, the writer's wife, the story of Hawthorne was inspired by the spontaneous abortion of his own wife. Translated into fiction, the blood color of the birthmark of his story has a feminine connotation of his wife and her defective reproductive capacity. Apparently, Nathaniel was deeply confused by his wife's failed pregnancy. It is impossible to sever it, but based on the altered psychology of the scientific character Almir by the birthmark of his wife, it can be suspected that Hawthorne holds some kind of reproach against his wife for that reproductive defect, with a subsequent exercise of reflection. If you liked the video, support me with your like. If you are new, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here you will find a huge library with the strangest stories in our world. I also invite you to activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of my next videos. If you want to support this space in a special way, you can join the community of members or give a thank you, which will be of great help and motivation for me. If you have a topic or story to tell, you can write me to the official email on the screen. A very special greeting and thanks to the members and followers of the channel. Thank you. Remember, stories are life lessons that immerse us to know better the world in which we live. See you soon.